What I'm interested in, I suppose, is why somebody in the noughties would start to make art that was, cutting edge stuff in the late 60s, a whole generation behind us. And I'm thinking, what's in this for him?
Every time I do something, it opens up another opportunity, and I go off and investigate that, and it leads on to another one and another one. So really, next year I don't know where I'm going to be, and I think that's the exciting part of being an artist, in the sense that you don't know where you're going with it. I'm not trying to say anything particular in my work. There is no story, there's no narrative. The work speaks for itself. The energy that I put into it, people will respond to that. Well, I suppose I was drawing and painting from a very early age. For instance, my father took me to the Rosk exhibition, which was held in Dublin in 1967, which was a real eye-opener for me. Around the same time, I saw artists like Vasarely and Soto, and wanted to go to our college, and luckily enough got into our college. Then subsequently went on to work in design for the next 20 years. Enjoyed graphic design for most of that time, but towards the end it became more and more a business and less about creativity, I suppose. So I reached a point where I decided to leave graphic design and concentrate on painting full time.
I first met Peter when I worked as head of collections at the Irish Museum of Modern Art. And Peter did a lot of graphic design work for us. When he decided to give up his very, successful career as a graphic designer and become a visual artist full-time, that he started by trying to be a figurative and gestural painter. But he actually, found that wasn't really working for him. And then, some of his background training kicked in, and he found himself experimenting with colour and experimenting with shape, really doing what Vasarely and the others were doing, going back to the very simple ingredients of what it takes to make an artwork.
I'd given myself a year or two to experiment, and I started playing around and experimenting with colour and with paper, and reached a point where I went into various different media, like wood and ping pong balls, for instance, and just random media. It became more enjoyable than actually doing the watercolours. And I found that I was going down a route that was new to me and different and fun. I realised there was more to mine in this area than there was in the ordinary sort of painting area. But I suppose over that period of time as well, I realised that I was going back to things that I liked when I started college 20 years before. or even when I was a child, things I enjoyed. Because it's me and it becomes natural to me. So the more I discovered that and the more I realised that, the more liberated I became. I realised that this is my art. It's about notes, it's about colour, it's about shape, tone and rhythm, and people react to that. I was confident that no matter what anybody else, other artists thought of it or other critics thought of it, because it wasn't fashionable to do what I was doing.
We're tormented that all art should have meaning of some kind. One meaning it can have is simply just that the artist likes to do it and feels fulfilled in doing it. And there's no doubt whatever that that's a factor in Peter Monaghan's work. There is a little bit of connection with commercial art and advertising, pop art here, as well as the optical illusionism and the kinetic. Sense of movement and so on, that is very evident in the work now. All of those things come together. The things that really connect him to the earlier people is his interest in colour and in shape, which he plays around with and has done all through his career as a graphic designer. The movement comes from the kinetic artists. The light is a presence for most artists and always has been. And what Peter does with all of those is he goes back to first principles and tries to find ways of making them work for him. So it doesn't really matter to him what other people are doing. What matters to him is that he's found a vehicle that he can use meaningfully for himself.
My inspiration comes from all sorts of places, from things I see, from people I meet, books I read, or the music I listen to. And it's a continuous process. One thing leads to another. And you might start off with a simple idea, and while executing that idea, it'll trigger off the next idea. But in combination with that, I would also try and give myself space, sort of mental space to think and to dream and to think up and to free think about all sorts of things.